I was not expecting to like this much. Well, that was a movie. Hello and welcome back to Simon's Rants. I'm Simon, and today I'm giving my first thoughts on Tick, Tick, Boom, which is a new musical adaptation of a play musical that was adapted from like a one-man show musical. So it's been adapted through a couple of things here and has been brought to the screen now, on Netflix at least, from director Lin-Manuel Miranda. It's also starring Andrew Garfield. And I'll be honest, the main reason I watched it was because Andrew Garfield, as well as Vanessa Hudgens, is in this movie. Just being honest, that was a big pull for me. So in case you don't know the plot of this film, it follows a true life story of playwright Jonathan Larson, who wrote musicals like Rent. And honestly, he didn't write much more than that, but that's kind of a key element to this story that I'm going to get into. If you don't know anything at all about this guy going into it, you'll be shocked how much they kind of expect you to know at least a little bit about him. I didn't know anything about him going into it, so there was some stuff that I would consider spoilers, but they just narrate. The narrator says it at the beginning of the movie, so I'm not going to consider it a spoiler because they didn't consider it a spoiler. He dies at a fairly young age. He died when he was just 35. In fact, he never actually got to see his most popular hit, Rent, ever performed, at least not on Broadway. So this story is about him as a struggling playwright, a struggling writer, trying to get his work noticed, trying to get his work out there on Broadway or even just anywhere. He just wants to get his stuff out there so he can stop working at a diner. He can actually do what he loves to do with his life. Like I said, it's directed by Lin-Manuel Miranda, who's most known for Hamilton, and it's very much in his style, but still maintaining a Jonathan Larson type style as well, which I thought was expertly handled because I'm not the biggest theater nerd. I'm not huge into theater. There's some stuff I know, like I'm a big fan of the opera, you know, Cats, I've talked about all that stuff before, but I know just very surface level stuff about theater, and so I knew very little going into this, but from what I could tell, the way they handled the style and the way that they portrayed this character, this real person, in his own musical style, it was something to behold, and I loved it. I really, really loved this movie a lot more than I thought I would, especially with how it started to how it finished. I started out thinking, yeah, this is fun, this is enjoyable, it's definitely not a bad movie, but maybe I'm wasting my time watching it. You know, it's that time of year where all of the good movies are coming out. I'm trying to get this perfect top 10 list for the year down pat. I'm trying to get it perfect. Maybe I shouldn't be wasting my time with this movie. It's obviously not going to make the list. But you know what? I was enjoying it enough, so I'll keep watching it. I got nothing better to do. I do, but I'm going to watch it anyway. And the more I watched it, the more I liked it. And it just kept getting better. And I kept catching myself going, how do I like this even more than I did half an hour ago? I'm amazed. I really was shocked with how much I enjoyed this movie. It really, really pulled me in with its style, which was very cheesy. It was very unique. It was very self-aware of its cheesiness and didn't care. It enjoyed the style. It enjoyed the flair. It enjoyed being a musical. Even a lot of the dialogue between characters is musical-esque. Not the entirety of the dialogue. There's some very good acting in there too, especially from Andrew Garfield. He's fantastic in this movie, but there is just a very much theatrical approach to everything. And obviously, especially the musical numbers and dancing and all of that stuff, it's not ashamed to be a musical at all, which it shouldn't be. I mean, it's that type of musical. It's a very Broadway type show, and it is goofy because of that, because that's what Broadway is, kind of goofy. It really is. When you see it on the stage, you're expecting to see it that way. When you see it in a movie, it can be a little bit jarring, but it didn't care. It didn't hold punches. It just showed itself to the best of its ability, which is wild and cheesy and fun. And I really had a lot of fun with this movie. I also cried a couple times here because it's got some emotional punches packed into it. I guess I'm going to get into some spoilers with this, so if you really care or you don't want anything spoiled, go watch it first. Like I said, it's on Netflix, but I don't think anything's really too big of a spoiler, so I'll just give you a second anyway. But so this movie, as it takes place in the 90s, there's a hot topic of AIDS going on in this movie, and so a lot of the subject of this movie, a lot of the plot of this movie is surrounded by death. It surrounds death constantly. I mean, even the title, if you stop and think about it for a second, evokes the idea of running out of time, because it's tick, tick, boom. That's the whole feel of this movie, is we're running out of time. And part of that has to do with him turning 30, and as a playwright, having not gotten anything out there, nothing on Broadway yet, he feels like he's running out of time. He's like, oh, the playwrights, oh, they've already done stuff by now. He even points out, Paul McCartney wrote the last song he ever wrote for the Beatles before he turned 30. He was already done with the Beatles by the time he was 30. So it's like, what am I doing? I'm not getting anywhere in life. So you've got that, but then you also mix that with his best friend has AIDS. And so it's like, what am I doing with my life? I need to do something with the amount of time I have. And so you've got that contrast and that perspective that Andrew Garfield's character, Jonathan Larson, has to wrestle with and be like, well, yeah, I do want to have this desperation to succeed, but I need to have perspective on I'm not literally dying, at least not that fast. I mean, we're all dying, but it takes us a while. And for him, sadly, it came sooner than anybody expected, but there is that perspective you have to have of, like, I don't have it the worst. Like, these people are actively dying right now, so I have to I have to appreciate what I do have. So yeah, this story, emotional, fun, happy, sad, everywhere in between, cheesy as all hell, very predictable and by the books in a lot of ways, like by the numbers. But you know what? I didn't care. At any point, I was never bored. I never wanted to speed up. I never wanted to slow down. I never really was checking the time and asking the movie to get it over with. Like, I enjoyed this movie, especially the music numbers. The music numbers were fantastic, even when they were goofy, even when they were cheesy. There was this rap number that came out of nowhere and it was kind of odd, but it's like, that was the Jonathan Larson style. I appreciate that. And then there's this other number about having a lavish, nice apartment, and that was really corny. It was really cheesy, but you know what? That was fun too. And then you've got the ballads that are just, gut punches. They hit you right in the heart. And there's a few of those, and just powerful emotional moments. So it was the full spectrum. Everything that you would want in this kind of musical, it succeeded at. Like I said, I didn't go into this expecting this to be one of the best movies this year. Frankly, I don't know why I started watching it, other than it was on my list of movies that I should review this year. But I was kind of like putting it off. Like, should I do this? Will I be wasting my time? And I didn't waste my time at all. This was fantastic. Far better than I expected it to be. I do have to say, though, like I said, I watched it partially because Vanessa Hudgens is in it, and she's a small role, but she's always fun, and she was good in this. I thought the entire cast was good. I already said Andrew Garfield was fantastic, and he was. I think he stood out. He was especially amazing when you take into consideration he's never sung before in any production ever. I don't know how that happened. I've heard stories about Lin-Manuel Miranda having the same, massage therapist as him or something, and being like, hey, do you know if he can sing? And her bullshitting, talking out of her ass and saying, yeah, sure he can. And then that somehow turned it into casting, and then he got cast as the lead in a musical. But hey, it worked out great. So there's that. Also, the main love interest, is played by Alexandra Shipp. I've seen her in very small roles, nothing that really stood out, nothing that I really remembered her doing. She was fantastic in this as well. I really liked her, and I would like to see more of her moving forward. She also did have, I think, only the one song number. She may have been singing, background in a couple of different songs, but she did have a solo at one point that ended up turning into a duet with Vanessa Hudgens. But she was really good. And like I said, I went into this movie wanting to see Vanessa Hudgens, and you're like, oh, here comes her solo. And then it's like, nope, it's not her solo. It's actually her solo. And I wasn't actually disappointed, because she was just that good that I was like, you know what? Even though we're dedicating the time to her instead, I'm enjoying it just as much as I would if Vanessa was singing it, so we're fine. I should also say Robin De Jesus was fantastic. He's the best friend. He was awesome. Like I said, the entire cast is great. Bradley Whitford plays Stephen Sondheim, and he was really good in that as well. I really enjoyed the acting all around. The singing, the choreography, everything about it was just fun and good. Just like, I know, like I said, it's very typical. It's very by the numbers and kind of just like cheesy. But like, it did everything that it did well. It was a very specific type of musical, but it did that type extremely, extremely well. And it was one of the best musicals I've seen in years. It was good. It was good. And I'm speaking to people that aren't huge theater fans. Like, one of my earliest notes in this was that this is a theater film made by theater people for theater people. And that's kind of how I felt at first. But as it went on, I was like, you know what, screw it. This movie was made for me too. I probably related to this movie too much, considering that it's about a guy feeling like he's wasting his life with an artistic vision, feeling like he's not getting anything accomplished, and going insane almost in the process. It was a lot like looking in a mirror in a lot of ways, and I really enjoyed the portrayal of that because it was very genuine. It was very raw in a lot of ways that hit really close to home, that I don't know if everybody will be able to relate to as well as, you know, me, someone like me who is trying to break into some sort of artistic field and is struggling with it. If you don't have that drive, you may not be able to relate to it as much, but as somebody who has experience with that, it was hard to watch at times, especially when you kind of stop and think about the fact that this guy never got to see his claim to fame on any sort of major stage. Like, the only things he accomplished, I was going to say in life, but it was really in death, was Rent, which became huge shortly after his death. And then this, which, like I said, it was a one-man show to start with. It was kind of him just doing a autobiographical one-man show, kind of going over his life and stuff. And then somebody took that after his death and turned it into a full stage production. And then that full stage production was then adapted into this film. So really, those are his only two things he's accomplished. And he didn't get to see either of those come to fruition. So it's both saddening and comforting to know that, one, if you only ever accomplish one thing in life, one great thing in life, one notable work, that doesn't mean you will be forgotten about. That doesn't mean you're just a one-hit wonder. You could still be, I mean, they made a movie about him, you know. And as well, similarly, just because you never see it come to be doesn't mean you won't be remembered forever. So those two things, I think, speak to the every artist, which is why I'm sure that this got turned into a story at all. It's a mixture of heartbreaking and heartwarming. It's a tough pill to swallow that, you know, there's so many talented people that strive so long and so hard for something and never get the recognition for it. And he's getting it now, but I mean, I had no idea who he was before this. And I know I'm not the biggest theater nerd, so that's probably why. I'm sure a lot of people, I mean, Steven Soderheim just died and everybody was talking about that, and I had no idea who we were talking about either. So I don't know theater that well. But regardless, I know who both of them are now because of movies like this. So that's cool. That's really cool that I know it's after his death and all, but like, he's still getting that recognition, and that's really cool. So I really enjoy this movie. I don't think it will be for everybody. I mean, obviously, if you're not into musicals, it's not your thing. If you're not into cheesy musicals, it's definitely not your thing. It's more of the cheesy, lighthearted take on things. That doesn't mean it doesn't have heart. It does have heart. It's got some depth to it. It's got some twists and turns to it, a couple of curveballs, things that make it just a little different and more unique than the average play or musical. So I would definitely recommend checking it out if you like musicals at all. And even if you don't necessarily, but this plot, this idea sounds something like you'd like or something you'd relate to, definitely check it out, because I thought it was expertly told. And once again, that's coming from somebody who's not a huge theater fan. I'm also not a Hamilton fan. I've never even listened to that all the way through. Not a Lin-Manuel Miranda fan, really. I mean, nothing against the guy. I've just, like I said, never watched Hamilton. Don't really ever care to, but this was good. So that's what I had to think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. And of course, don't forget to like, share, and if you're new here, subscribe. Thanks, guys. Bye.